For any hip-hop head, a trip to New York is full of reminders of hip-hop's deep history. Even decades after its birth, the echoes of hip-hop's early days are everywhere. But to really understand hip-hop's story, I gotta take you a step back to the early 1970s, just before it all began, when a different sound ruled New York.
You have to understand, disco was hot. Late 60s and the early 70s, disco came and hit. It was an explosion. Everyone had on suits and silk dresses, and you dress your best to go to the club. Everyone was disco crazy.
You had CEOs, athletes, entertainers, whoever was so-called celebrity. So everybody's perception of New York City was like, yo, look at the fur coats, look at the Rolls Royces, look at the champagne, look at the diamonds, look at the sex, look at all the money and the famous people. People in the world, especially in America, thought New York City was heaven. But back then, the Bronx was burning.
The South Bronx, believed by the city to be the worst fire area in the country. There were 12,300 fires here last year. It is as if there is a war going on. Many parts of the South Bronx look like a city under siege, with entire blocks wiped out, buildings decimated, debris everywhere.
I grew up in the Bronx during the 60s. It was like Beirut. You know, in certain parts of the Bronx, man. I mean, when they say the Bronx was burning, the Bronx was burning.
Cold, cold eyes upon me, they stare. People all around me, and they're all in fear.
You go up into the middle of the Bronx, and it's just these pockets of devastation. You know, it was a massive urban decay.
From my party house, I'm afraid to come outside. Although I'm filled with love, I'm afraid they'll hurt my pride.
South Bronx, where we lived at, people were struggling, man. You had single parents, they were on welfare, you know, people wasn't really working, there wasn't really no jobs and stuff like that. You couldn't go in certain areas, man. You couldn't go in that area, you couldn't go in this area, you couldn't go in that area. You had killings, you had muggings, you had people getting killed by the police, people going to jail for the rest of their lives.
It was that boiling point to just give birth to something from nothing. And out of all that turbulence and upheaval was the birth of hip-hop.